Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our worship service at Central Unitarian Church. My name is Susan Usatine, and I am proud to serve as your worship associate this morning and also to serve on the design team. CUC is an inclusive community of all ages which embraces diversity in identity, expression, and spiritual belief. We gather together here each Sunday in worship to find inspiration, hope, and renewal among this community of like-hearted individuals. If you are visiting us in person today, please be sure to say hello to one of our welcome hosts. I saw Joan and Rudy out there. Give a wave, everyone. Thank you. If you are visiting with us online, please be sure to click the link provided in the chat and sign our guest book by providing us with your name and contact information. We invite you to stay after service today for coffee, conversation, and connection here in this same space. And thank you to Denise and Carol for the lovely coffee hour this morning. Speaking of connection, I have a few terrific opportunities to get involved here at CUC. First, the Winter Spiral Service. Join us this Friday evening, December 20th, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the clubhouse as we create our winter spiral. Transforming the space for this service takes many hands. We'll have food and sweets while we work together. All are welcome. We do need more pine boughs for this service, and if you are able to donate those, please contact our Director of Family Faith Formation, Allie. We will also be hosting an open house the following evening on Saturday, December 21st from 5 to 7 for people in the community to take a meditative walk through our winter spiral. We will offer cookies and hot cider. Please do spread the word and invite others to join us for this Saturday's open house as well as for our Sunday service. Finally, our winter spiral service celebrating the winter solstice will take place on Sunday, December 22. We are still in need of readers and participants for this service. If you would like to participate, please do contact Reverend Andrée. Speaking of Christmas Eve, the Christmas Eve candlelight service is taking place on Tuesday, December 24th at 7 p.m. This year's service will once again take place at the Westwood Community Center. We need help in preparation for this service, and if you are willing to help set up and decorate our space here on Christmas Eve morning, if you are willing to serve as an usher or are willing to participate in the service as a reader or to clean up after the service, please contact Reverend Andrée. We also need everyone's help in creating the decorations for the Christmas Eve worship space. This week's e-newsletter included instructions on how to make an old-fashioned paper snowflake. Wow, did we used to make a lot of these when I grew up in New England. In addition, in the back of the room today, we have paper and scissors. Take some time to make a snowflake or many snowflakes today during the service, after the service, during our meeting, or after the service this week. We want a lot of snowflakes to hang off this ceiling. Be creative and have fun, and then bring your snowflakes to the service on Christmas Eve. As I mentioned, we will be having a congregational meeting today after service, starting at noon here in the clubhouse. This meeting is to review a request for the Endowment Trust Fund to make a donation to CUC's capital account to support the renovations of 36 Bergen Street, our new building. All voting members are encouraged to attend. Please see Linda Fritsch following the service if you are staying for the meeting so she can count your name towards the quorum. Now I'd like to invite Reverend Andrée up for an additional announcement.
I just want to mention that our outreach auction, our annual outreach auction, wrapped up last night, and I understand from Jeff Merrigan that we raised over $20,000 for the 5 local organizations that we were supporting. And there is still an opportunity, not for the auction items, but if you still want to donate to those specific 5 organizations, you can still go to the outreach 6 organizations. I have been corrected. If you still want to donate to any of those 6 organizations, you can still do so throughout this week. So please be sure to do so if you have not already. And now, let us more formally move into our time of worship. Why don't you turn to somebody next to you and give them a warm welcome this morning. Good morning. A lot going on this time of year. This should be working well. Okay. Our call to worship this morning comes from the Reverend Sean Parker Dennison. These words are titled Sacrament. And I think we may need some help getting some additional chairs in the back row because I see some folks came in and may need a place to sit. Thank you. These words are titled Sacrament. Every in-breath, every out-breath, every blink, every sigh, every shiver, every hesitation, every flight, fight, or freeze, every memory, every joy, every grimace, every impatience, every sadness, every helplessness, every satisfaction, every confidence, every try again and again and again, every yes, every no, every maybe, every fear, every rage, every cry, every grin, every blush, every fall, every perfect landing, everything. And I invite you to rise in body or spirit for opening hymn 347 in the gray hymnal or on our screen, Gather the Spirit. Trials in this life, now I'd like to invite up the president of our board of trustees, Dolores Connors, to lead us in our chalice lighting words.
Good morning. Good morning. I ask you to recite these words of our chalice lighting together as we start. We light this chalice to remind us of our dreams, to nourish our heart, mind, and spirit, to work towards a better world for all, to embrace the whole of our human experience, to honor our past and our gifts of the present, to create a community where each of us may find healing, transformation, and hope. Thank you.
This morning we have the honor of doing one of our sacred tasks that we have here in religious life, which is welcoming new members into our community. For the congregation, it is an affirmation of who we are and the religious values for which we stand. And for our newest members, this represents a significant commitment. So I am going to invite up first our two new members who are joining us today. And I'm going to ask Dolores to join us as well. And we'll share a little bit about them. So Mike and Jamal, come on up. Ask you to stand right here. So some of you may already know Mike and Jamal, but we want to share a little bit about each of them. So Jamal Tuba recently returned to Westwood, where he grew up, returned here in 2021 after living in the suburbs of Denver, Colorado for 23 years. Sadly, he lost his wife of 18 years in 2019 and sold their home there. When he came here, he cared for his mom for 3 months before she passed away in 2021. He finds solace in nature and enjoys going on hikes and walking along the beach in warmer weather, and he enjoys the fellowship of the CUC congregation. Mike is a former owner of a fire alarm engineering distribution company. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. He's joining CUC because you've been around CUC for a while. I know I've seen you around and I've known you since I've began CUC in 2019. Because two of his family members, his mom, June Donahue, I know I saw June over there. Hello, June. And his brother, Jimmy Donahue, were frequent members here. He's attended numerous services and events and have helped with many church projects, and I'll add, including being indispensable in our last few years at 156 Forest Avenue, where we had a lot going on. And through these experiences, he's learned to appreciate more and more over the years, both the membership, the wider membership of CUC, and our efforts to support our wider community. And so, we welcome these two into membership. We're going to do this little ritual of sharing some words. First, I will have some words to share, then Dolores as our president, and then we have a part for each of you as our congregation and a part for you as our new members. The congregation parts and the new member parts will be up on our screen. So you can already see the congregation's welcome, so you can get ready for that. Active membership at Central Unitarian Church challenges you to deepen your faith, to build compassionate, meaningful relationships with others, and to invest your time, talents, and gifts to build a strong religious community that serves our members, the surrounding community, and our world. Faithfully meeting these challenges will require effort, but this work belongs to us all. I welcome you into this community of covenant and care. With love, I embrace you in faith.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees of Central Unitarian Church, I welcome you into this membership and congratulate you on this important milestone in your individual spiritual journeys. As a community of faith, we have so much to offer you. As unique individuals, you have so much to offer us. We hope that you are changed by us and that we are changed by you. May we all be stronger and happier for your presence here. I welcome you into this community of covenant and care. With love, I embrace you in faith.
And now here is your part. As a congregation, you two are going to have to move over a little bit so your heads are out of the way from the screen. Thank you, Susan, for pointing that out. Congregation.
We, the members of Central Unitarian Church, welcome you. We pledge to care for you, to support you, to work with you, and to learn from you. May the blessings of your membership touch all of us. We welcome you into this community of covenant and care. With love, we embrace you in faith.
And now, as our newest members, we have a pledge for both of you to recite. You're not mic, so please speak loudly.
We speak with
Together, yep.
I freely accept the privileges and responsibilities of membership in this congregation. I pledge to uphold the covenant of this religious community and to support, sustain, and participate in the life of this congregation. With joy and hope, I join this community of covenant and care. With love, I embrace you in faith.
And now all of us together, as a congregation, we honor our mission and promise to act with grace as we celebrate our shared humanity. We view our differences as strengths and work to meld them into harmony by listening with open minds. We agree to act with honesty and compassion, love and respect. With this covenant, we will deepen our connections and add joy to our collective lives. And so now I'm going to invite you each to come forward and sign our membership book. As I think I've shared with both of you, and I remind this congregation, this book has been around for a long time. This physical one that's here has signatures going all the way back to 1976. I have the remaining signatures in my office in an archive going back to our founding. So by signing this book, you are joining not only the current members, but all the members who have been a part of this congregation since we started in Hackensack in 1897. So please go ahead and sign. Elizabeth has a gift. There. Let us welcome our newest members.
We are not alone. Our lives are built on shared commitments, giving and receiving together. Our congregation serves as a place where we intentionally practice this shared living, interdependence in a culture that overemphasizes independence. One of the ways we practice our interdependence is through our congregation's finances, which depend on the generous contributions of members and friends. We pause each week to recognize this particular form of sharing, each of us giving what we can to support the mission and vision of Central Unitarian. Your financial contribution helps each and every one of us to grow, to serve, and most importantly, to live lives centered on love. Our offering will now be gratefully received. Let us join our voices together in unison as we speak our dedication words based on CUC's mission statement. We dedicate these gifts in service of our mission to welcome all into a home of spiritual diversity that challenges us to become our best selves, to minister to one another in love, and to serve the greater community.
Now we enter into a time of meditation, taking time to share the joys and sorrows of this community. This is something we do each week as a way of caring for each other. I have some pre-written joys and sorrows which I will share out loud. And for those of you online, if you have any joys or sorrows you want to type into the chat now, I will share those out loud. And then I'll invite you to share out loud the name of anybody else you're holding in your heart this morning. Following this sharing, we'll enter into a moment of silence, followed by a moment of prayer. So let's prepare ourselves to move into that space of sacred giving and receiving. Let us breathe in a breath of life and breathe out a breath of love. As we share today the joys and sorrows of this community for Sunday, December 15th, 2024. Chat, so I invite you to share out loud the name of anybody else you're holding in your heart this morning. Let us hold all these joys and all these sorrows, both those spoken and unspoken, together in our hearts with love as we enter into a moment of silence. Spirit of life, God, beloved, one of many names and no names. This holiday season, as we occupy ourselves with our annual rituals and gatherings, while the regular joys and sorrows of our lives continue, may we reawaken to the possibilities of your presence. Not in our imagination, not hidden from sight or other senses, but present among us, in the trees, in the birds, in the wind, the stars, the frosty nights, the flame in the window, and in each other's hearts. Attuned to such a presence, we cannot help but transform ourselves, change the way we behave toward each other, and change the way we act toward our living universe of which we are a part. Awaken our spirits, open our hearts, and transform our world. Blessed be, and amen. I invite you to remain seated for our next hymn. This one is in Latin, which we don't tend to do very often here. The translation of this verse is, "Where charity and love abound, God is there." And Matt, if you can play it through once for us, and then we'll sing it through 3 times. it again?
Our reading this morning comes from the poet Mary Oliver. It is titled, Making the House Ready for the Lord, published in her 2006 book of poems titled Thirst. Dear Lord, I have swept and I have washed, but still nothing is as shining as it should be for you. Under the sink, for example, is an uproar of mice. It is the season of their many children. What shall I do? And under the eaves and through the walls, the squirrels have gnawed their ragged entrances. But it is the season when they need shelter. So what shall I do? And the raccoon limps into the kitchen and opens the cupboard, while the dog snores. The cat hugs the pillow. What shall I do? Beautiful is the new snow falling in the yard, and the fox who is staring boldly up the path to the door. And still, I believe you will come, Lord, you will. When I speak to the fox, the sparrow, the lost dog, the shivering sea goose, know that I am really speaking to you whenever I say, and as I do all morning and afternoon, come in, come in.
I love that poem by Mary Oliver. I didn't really know it as well, and I ran into that this week. And I love the way the perception of the divine shifts as you hear that poem. At first, she presents God in a way where it's like God seems to be expecting everything to be tidy and neat in its place, a God that might offer answers to the natural world, which seems to be intruding on her home in this cold weather. And this shifts as she proclaims the beauty of the world through the falling snow and the fox looking boldly up the path to the front door. She speaks to nature and knows that she is speaking to the divine, beckoning it into her house, not as an intrusion, but as a welcome guest. Oliver is known for using nature in her poems as a source of spiritual inspiration. She famously lived and wrote on Cape Cod for over 50 years. She claimed to hate buildings. She said she got up every morning at 5 a.m. with her notebook and wandered outdoors with that notebook in hand, often composing poems as she walked. In an interview with Krista Tippett on her show On Being, Oliver describes growing up in a Christian household, but not finding home in the church, but finding lifelong importance in spirituality, whether that came from Christianity or the outdoors, or through other things like her daily readings of the poet Rumi, who was a Sufi Muslim. I know that life is much richer with a spiritual part to it, she said, and I also think nothing is more interesting. So I cling to it. After a difficult childhood, she says, I got saved by poetry and I got saved by the beauty of the world. And her writing became a way of listening to the world. And she insisted that her writing wasn't purely observational. Obviously, as you heard in that poem that Susan just read, she has rich observations of the natural world in her poem. But it's not just observations of nature that are in there. Her writing is also infused with feeling. And this feeling and this observation is part of what she referred to as paying attention. And paying attention, she said, is the beginning of devotion. This sense of attention and devotion are palpable in her poems. Through her, you sense the presence of the sacred in the world all around us. And as I sit with her poems this week, I worry that too many of us in the modern West, especially those of us, including those of us who still regularly observe religious practices, I feel like too many of us have lost that sense of the divine in the world around us. And I find myself, to some extent this time of year, sympathizing with those bumper stickers that say, "Keep Christ in Christmas." And I don't identify as a Christian, and I grew up in a secular household, but we regularly still observed in a secular way both Christmas and Easter. And the older I get, the more frustrated I seem to become with the commercialization of this year, this insistence on buying and accumulating, of giving each other store-bought things, whether we celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah or solstice, buying these things as if the world this time of year isn't already full of gifts, and as if we aren't already full of gifts that we can offer each other. Now, I have to admit, when I was a kid, those gifts, as for many of us, was the center part of my holiday. And I was actually jealous of my friends who celebrated Hanukkah because they got 8 nights of gifts, which I completely overlooked the fact that between all the gifts that I got from all my relatives, I got way more than 8 gifts on Christmas. But now that I celebrate Hanukkah in our house with my family and my wife, we've started to practice a few years ago during the pandemic that I've really appreciated. During Hanukkah, we exchange a few small gifts over the 8 days, but they have to be practical. They have to be something somebody wants, or they can just be very practical, like warm socks are always very welcome. And on many nights, all we do is exchange cards. And what we write in the cards are things that we've already given each other. Perhaps one of us paid for the weekend or arranged for a weekend away. Perhaps I put up new shelves in her closet. Perhaps one of us simply did the laundry or made dinner or washed the dishes. They're just simple reminders of the gifts that we offer each other all the time. And this has become one of my favorite little rituals of the season. But even that, as much as I love that, it doesn't quite point to what I feel that we've lost this time of year. To many of us, like I said, we can no longer sense the sacredness of the world around us. We can't recognize it in the mice under the sink or the squirrels in the wall and the raccoon that breaks into the house for a snack, much less in each other. Our collective lost sense of the sacred. It reminds me of this story. I found this story in a book called Doorways to the Soul, edited by Elisa Davy Perriman. And the origins of the story are unknown. But it takes place in a monastery that had fallen upon hard times. Some of the younger monks had left in dissatisfaction, and no new men were joining. There were a handful of monks and their leader, the abbot, remaining. They began fighting amongst themselves, each blaming the hard times and faults and failings on each other. And one day, a traveling rabbi stopped by the monastery for a night's rest. He ate and he prayed alongside the other monks. The next day, as the rabbi prepared to continue on his journey, the abbot drew him aside. And he told him the problems of the monastery and asked him for his observations and for some advice to share with the other monks. Upon hearing the abbot's woes, the rabbi was quiet for some time. And the abbot begged, "Can't you give me some advice to help my monastery thrive again?" Your monks won't listen to my advice," the rabbi replied. "But perhaps they would benefit from an observation. The Messiah dwells among you here in the monastery." "One of us?" asked the abbot, astonished. "Which one?" "Oh, that I cannot say," the rabbi answered. "Share this with your brothers, and in time it'll be revealed to you." The abbot thanked him and sent him on his way. He then gathered the monks together, who listened in amazement to the news. "One of us? But who?" each one of the monks says aloud. Then to themselves they wondered, could it be Brother Robert? No. Or could it? And surely not Brother Henry. But then there were times when not the youngest. Well, maybe. The abbot himself? Could it be me? They're all wondering. And soon things began to change at the monasteries. Each began to see the Messiah in each other and hear the Messiah's words in each word spoken. And soon people began to wander back to the monastery, and in time, new men joined and the monastery thrived. The rabbi didn't do anything miraculous. The rabbi simply reminded the monks about an important truth that they had forgotten. The world is shot through with the divine. It surrounds us and is inside each and every one of us. And notice in the beginning of the story what happened when they forgot this truth. They began fighting amongst themselves, each blaming the hard times and faults and failings on each other. I feel like that pretty much sums up the state of the world right now, right? If we're going to get through hard times together, we need to remain attuned to the sacred. When ministers and others who offer pastoral care come in contact with someone that we are caring for, what we're offering is active listening. Our gift is to pay full attention to the present moment. And that includes not just the individual that we are meeting with and providing care, but that also means paying attention to the sacred and asking ourselves, where is the sacred in this particular moment? I spoke last week about some of my experiences working as an interfaith chaplain during my pastoral care training. These were moments when one cannot turn away from the true reality of the world, including the brokenness of the world and suffering. And often during my visits, patients freely shared what they were missing while they were locked away in the sterile hospital, removed from what was most precious for them. They missed their homes. They missed their loved ones, their families. One woman shared with me memories of her husband who'd passed a number of years ago and described how she still felt every day her connection to him, but she worried that that connection may be fading. Many patients shared their connection with non-human companions. One woman and I spent a good hour talking about her cat, who she missed. A gruff-looking patient covered in tattoos lovingly spoke to me of his dogs. And not just his dogs, but his deep connection he felt to trees. He explained to me he ran a tree service and expressed his frustration at clients who just wanted him to chop down healthy trees that he always refused to do. He claimed to be able to visualize the health of a tree simply by coming up to it and touching it and sitting with it for a while. His business card said, "The keeper of God's trees." In many of these cases, when I arrived to visit these patients, they were restless. There's a lot of sitting around in hospitals and lying around in hospitals, as many of us know, and often waiting for information and dealing with uncertainty. So I simply sat and offered them my presence. Sometimes the nurses expressed exasperation with some of these restless patients. Some of them even called the chaplains to help out. One time I got called to a patient undergoing dialysis. The nurse explained that she was in a lot of pain and was facing a decision to either continue the painful dialysis that she had been on for, I think, over a year, or to end it and possibly face the end of her own life. And no one in the staff could calm her down. When I sat with her, She shared stories of the people that were most important to her life that she missed. Many of them were gone, including her dog. She claimed at one point she could still feel her dog jump up into her bed beside her at night, even though the dog was no longer there. She may have known she was facing the end of her own life and wondered. She wondered if she might see her dog in heaven. "Do you think that's possible?" she asked me. "Yeah," I replied. And shortly after, as frequently happened with restless patients I visited, who I just sat with, she fell asleep. The sacred is always present. Like the rabbi in the story and our poet, Mary Oliver, much power lies in observing that presence and simply sharing it with others. In such cases, we invoke the divine by simply welcoming it into our hearts. At the end of Oliver's poem, we heard earlier from Susan, she shares how she speaks to animals as a way of speaking to God, and each time she says, "Come in, come in." And as I sat with this, I realized I read it less as an invitation to welcome the divine into our own home and more of an opening to allow ourselves to accept what is already there. I worry that we are truly losing this ability to pay attention to all that is holy, all that surrounds us on a daily basis. And I worry because we do truly suffer as a result of not paying attention in this way. In a world where we're blaming each other for our hard times and killing each other for it, we need more people with the power to pay attention and to be fully present with the beauty of the world, to remind ourselves and each other that all of life is a miracle and therefore must be cherished. In her poem, Sometimes, Mary Oliver offers a stanza that sums this up. She writes, "Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it." What lovely instructions. Pay attention, be astonished, and tell about it. We cannot help but change the world with such an awareness. I just want to close with another poem by Mary Oliver that I think speaks to so much of what I'm sharing this morning. This is one of her more famous poems, Summer's Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who's flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, the one moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?
Let us join our voices together one last time as we speak our chalice extinguishing words based on CUC's covenant. We extinguish this chalice flame, but not our promise to each other, to act with grace, to hold each other in love, to serve this community and our world. This promise of the heart serves as a reminder of how we live together. May it bring joy to our collective lives.
Please rise and body your spirit for our closing hymn, 123, Spirit of Life. So let us leave with these words by Mary Oliver, these instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. Blessed be. Amen. Thank you, Matt, for your music this morning. Thank you to Susan Usatine for being my worship associate and for Phil Sosinsky for being on tech. Please do stay for coffee and connection.